Good evening. It is 5:30 p.m. on Wednesday, October 21st, 2020. This is the regular City Council meeting. I now call to order. I am Mayor Shelby Ronstadt, presiding in City Council chambers at City Hall, 1123 West Lake Street in Sandpoint, Idaho. For the record, council members Shannon Sherman, Deb Rule, Joel Aspiro, John Darling, and Andy Grote are present. Council members Aspiro and Grote are participating here in the chambers. Council members Sherman, Rule, and Darling are participating remotely. Councilwoman Kate McAllister is absent this evening. We'll now rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Are there any announcements from council? Okay. Staff.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor.
No worries.
Yes, we have a couple announcements. First, we got our first winter snow watch issued today for Friday. For potential of 3 to 6 inches of snow. And so it's that time of year to remind the public of our winter snow parking rules. So I'll have the chief come up. And we'll get this posted on our Facebook page and website, and we'll have a press release out tomorrow on this also.
Thanks, Jennifer. Just as a reminder, if you haven't noticed or seen, snow was supposed to be here Friday. Not to put the damper on anything, but snow is coming. With that being said, we have our snow advisory that comes out as a reminder to our public. A couple of things to remember is that vehicles parked on the street during our snow and ice events can negatively affect the snow removal. So we've asked for a few things to take place during this season. One, we asked between November 1st and March 1st that all vehicles park on the even side of the street so that the plows can plow the streets. As a reminder, downtown, between the hours of 2 a.m. and 6 a.m., there is no parking. Vehicles that are left on the street in violation of this and the snow plows can't get by on the even side, they can be towed and or ticketed. So it's critical that citizens follow all those rules and some of those directions given. So just a quick reminder for the public, it's park on the even side of the street unless it's posted otherwise. So we have some areas where the even side of the street is marked no parking. So in those areas, it's okay to park on the side of the street, but outside of that, it's park on the even side of the street. If you have a recreational vehicle, basketball hoops, boats, trailers, anything that's out in the street, the city asks that you get it out of the street, move it to storage to help free up that space for snow.
Does that include hockey nets?
Hockey nets, anything else that tend to encroach into the street in the summer for fun. We ask to try to get them out of the street so they don't get damaged or plowed in. Also, with that reminder, sidewalks is always an issue. ADA ramps is an issue. Citizens are reminded that they are responsible for the sidewalk in front of the property to make sure that stays shoveled and cleaned. One of the other notes that I had was trash cans. Avoid placing trash containers in the street until it's been plowed. It'll help in getting them knocked over and getting the streets cleared. The last thought to remember is that it is against city code to snow blow or shovel your snow in the residential back into the street once it's been plowed. So those are a few points to look at. And like Jennifer said, it's going to get posted on our Facebook page and the city site here in the next couple of days. So just a heads up, start looking for that.
So Chief, I noticed you said in the residential areas, so that is acceptable in the commercial areas and downtown in particular?
So in the commercial area prior to the snow plows.
Wink, wink, nod, nod.
She's nodding her head, yes. So we do allow in the downtown core for those businesses to get out early in the morning and to shovel their sidewalks into the street, help clean up because they really don't have a place to put it.
Okay. And that's what is a typical time that we would expect the downtown to be plowed? Is there a typical time?
So
You don't have to do
So usually what happens, we'll come out and start moving cars at that 2 o'clock in the morning, but under their new rotation, they start plowing consistently. And I don't say that without looking at the manual, as they've changed some of their stuff the last couple of years. So I'm gonna stare at her and she's gonna walk up and answer that question.
Okay. Thanks, Chief.
Thank you, Chief. Mr. Mayor, the chief is correct. It primarily is a continuous effort. I would say that we primarily try to target the downtown between 2 a.m. Until 6 a.m. in the morning is our prime target. It can take up to typically 6 hours actually though for us to do a full plow downtown because we're blowing the snow off. And so what we tried last year and what we're going to continue to do this year is more continuous plowing downtown throughout the day as best we can when the snow is shallow enough that can be accommodated.
Okay.
That answered your question.
And so just for clarity, so it's in those conditions, it sounds like it's okay for business owners downtown to shovel the sidewalk snow out into the street really at any time.
It
Can we
is.
get some
It would
clarity
be
on that?
advantageous for them if they could do it before their business opens. It allows us to address it before parked cars are in place.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Thanks, Chief.
Mr. Mayor,
Yeah.
one second announcement from staff. Wanted to let council know that we learned late yesterday afternoon from our attorney, Peter Erbland, who's been handling the litigation with Bonner County and Sheriff Wheeler on the Festival at Sandpoint's policy of banning firearms during their concert series. The Bonner County and the sheriff filed a notice of appeal in the case with the Idaho Supreme Court. So I will get a copy of that notice of appeal to council members. So you're able to see that. I'll get that forwarded on to you. We do have a court hearing scheduled before Judge Haynes again this coming Tuesday at 1:30. And he is considering the matter of reimbursement of the city's legal fees at that hearing. That hearing will continue to go forward regardless of the notice of appeal. We are expecting a decision on Tuesday related to the court fees, so our attorney fees.
Great. Thank you for that. Okay. We will now proceed with the public forum portion of the meeting, which gives the public an opportunity to address council and myself regarding items listed on the consent calendar or on any topic not listed on the agenda. Clerk, has anyone signed up online to speak in the public forum?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Is there anyone present here today that would like to speak in the public forum? Okay. Seeing none, that concludes the public forum portion of the meeting this evening. Next on the agenda is the consent calendar. For the record, the total amount of bills is $907,633.45. reflecting $268,731.88 for regular payables and $638,901.57 for payroll. Are there any items council wishes to remove from the consent calendar? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion that the consent calendar be approved.
So moved.
Second. It's been moved and seconded. This will be a roll call vote. And I do want to say before we vote, I want to recognize Bob Wilson, who has served seemingly forever on the tree committee for the city of Sandpoint, and really appreciate his volunteerism and continued service to the city. He's been a great service on that committee and really appreciate his continued participation. So thank you in advance for approving his confirmation. This will be a roll call vote.
Councilman Grote,
Yes.
Councilwoman Sherman,
Yes.
Councilman Darling,
Yes.
Councilman Spiro,
Yes.
Councilwoman Rule,
Yes.
Consent calendar is approved. The first item under old business this evening are 3 reports. First, we will hear a COVID-19 update from Dawn Duffy of Panhandle Health District, who is joining us this evening, which we really appreciate your participation with us this evening. Thanks for being here. Then we're going to switch the order of items 7B and 7C. First, hearing a report from Andrea Marcaccio of Bonner County Economic Development Corporation on the CARES Act Supported Business Grant Program. And then we'll hear from Matthew Lawrence of Aquatic Weed Solutions with a report on this year's diver-assisted suction harvesting and plans for the coming year. So first is the COVID-19 update, and I will kick it off to City Administrator Jennifer Stapleton to lead us off.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a brief update on my end regarding our COVID-19, really related to our policies and procedures. We've been working closely with Panhandle Health District related to our policies and procedures and decisions that we've had to make relative to occupancy levels, for example, at War Memorial Field, when we're doing our parks and recreation programming, et cetera. So based on discussions with Don Duffy's, who's our liaison with Panhandle Health District, we were able to expand occupancy at War Memorial Field in time for a homecoming game last Friday. So we're just under 50% occupancy, but between the visitors, bleachers, and the grandstands themselves, we're at about 750 people that can be accommodated there. That's still with every other row blocked off at the grandstands, but it was a fairly significant increase over what we've been able to do previously, and the advice around occupancy levels and supporting the schools and the schools being able to successfully open and stay open. But we agreed to revisit at the end of September, and so in time for homecoming, we were able to increase occupancy levels. Don has also advised that we can look at some of our winter parks and recreation programming and look at with some safety measures put in play to be able to reopen some of our recreation programming. So Kim and Jason are working on that, and we're looking forward to making some announcements here in the next few days about what offerings we will have for winter going into the first of the year. It'll be limited from what we typically have because we're so late in the season, but we will be able to add in some recreational offerings, subject to us staying in, there's different levels that they use for the community. We have been in the yellow level. So being able to stay in that level enabled us to increase occupancy and add some recreation programming. But as I've been working with Don through this over the last week, he had also offered to come back in and do another general update to council, which we had talked about at an earlier council meeting. So with that, I will hand it over to you, Don, to kind of just give a general update on what's happening around COVID-19 and through the health district.
Wonderful. And I guess I can share my screen. Are we good with that?
Yes.
Wonderful. Thank you. First of all, the best news I heard, being a property owner in Schweitzer, that you have a snow kind of warning going on. So this meeting's already been a success for me. So let me go ahead and share with you some statistics that you might find helpful. Find it here.
It's a nice screensaver you got there.
Yeah, thanks.
It looks like you're waiting for the snow.
I am waiting for the snow. So this document that you see in front of you now, this was prepared by our chief epidemiologist. This is a report that we look at daily. And we'll get more granular to get you more information on Bonner County specific. So as of today, this morning is when this report came out. District 1, so the 5 northern counties of Idaho, has had 4,545 cases. In the last 7 days, we've had 781 cases. Unfortunately, that's a record for us. The median age of cases is 42 years old. Total hospitalizations that we've had thus far is 255. New hospitalizations just in the past 7 days has been 40. I'll talk more about that later. And that is Kootenai Health. That does not represent numbers coming from Bonner, but most cases, the vast majority of cases, are transferred to Kootenai Health for care. The median age of an admit is 74 years old. Interesting range has been 1 year old to 101 years old. Total deaths have been 71. Deaths in the past 7 days have been 2. The median age of death is 81 years old, and that ranges from a 58-year-old to a 101-year-old have passed away due to COVID-19. As you can see here on the confirmed and probable cases that we're looking at, we call the epi curve, so the date we received it, the cases have increased dramatically. We're exceeding the numbers that we saw in late July and August. This is the report that Jennifer was referring to. I hope you can see that. It's a little small, but this is the 7-day, the incident rate. It's a 7-day rolling average for incident rates. And you can see the lines there. And you can see now that both Kootenai County and Boundary County are in the red category, meaning they are experiencing more than 30 cases per 100,000 over a 7-day average. And as you can see, we have not hit that for those two counties in the past. They are, where we were averaging 30 to 40 cases a day, we're now at the past 7 days have averaged 111 cases per day. So it certainly is taxing the resources that we have right now. In fact, tomorrow morning, I have a meeting with Kootenai Health and epidemiology to decide what area, what range various counties will be in. The gating criteria for that are 3. One you're seeing right here is the 7-day rolling average. We also look at the positivity rate, which I'll show you in a moment, but has gone from roughly around 5 to 6% to up to 13% of patients being tested are positive. Most concerning right now is hospital capacity. We received a letter from the pulmonologist at Kootenai Health, and this is in preparation for our Board of Health meeting tomorrow, in which the Board of Health will vote yet again on the mask mandate, essentially whether to keep it or to lift the mask mandate. And currently, and I'm just going to read just a couple of short excerpts from the hospital, from the pulmonologist here. It says the Inland Northwest is at a critical moment in the COVID-19 pandemic. The actions of our community will determine whether Kootenai Health and other regional hospitals will have the ability to continue to providing all types of care for patients in our region. As of 8 a.m. on October 21st, Kootenai Health has 31 COVID-19 inpatients, and 11 of these patients require critical care. I might add that the percentage of those that get into critical care that pass away is around 40%. The overall hospital census for all patients requiring medical or surgical care is 99% full. Spokane hospitals are also full, and many cannot accept more patients. Kootenai Health is currently looking at hospitals in Seattle or Portland to find space to transfer patients, but it is very limited. Kootenai Health is also facing a shortage in staff. Our hospital, health district, and emergency responders are relying on our community for support. The best way forward is to keep with efforts that will flatten the uptick in cases in our region. And that includes what you've all heard, wearing masks, washing hands, keeping home if you're sick, avoid public areas, avoid travel, cover your cough and sneeze, and of course 6-foot distancing. So when we look at those 3 gating criterias, I suspect that tomorrow when we look at that, we will suggest at least Kootenai County to be in the red category, as well as Boundary County. The only county that has remained consistently low and actually has gone down just recently, thankfully, has been Bonner County. They're running, as you can see in this, they're running a little below 10 cases per 100,000, again, on the 7-day rolling average. So we're very, very pleased with what's happening here. I'll scroll down here and you can see each county. Benawai is also going to probably maintain in the yellow category at 7.7. You can see Boundary, you can see Boundary at 39.7, Kootenai at 37.7. Shoshone will be in the orange, I suspect, at 18.9. But the district as a whole, if we average all 5 counties together, we are in the red category at 30.7. So we are definitely in a surge. We are definitely exceeding where we were prior.
Don, can I ask a question at
Please,
this point? And you explained this last time, but I think it's helpful for us to hear it again because it's, we hear a lot of different stats and it's hard to understand for the layperson how they relate. And I know that as Kootenai Health has reported out for Bonner County on a weekly basis, sometimes more, we had hit our peak of 73 active cases, as they call them, at some point in mid-July, and then it dropped precipitously really until the fall. And then it's just been in the recent weeks that it has risen rather sharply. As I recall, last week we had 67 cases. It was active cases. It was reported on Monday, this Monday, that we had 90 active cases, a new record for Bonner County. And then just today it came out that we're at 87 active cases. So can you explain how that relates to the 7-day rolling average, and how, it appears from that statistic that we are also on an increase, but you say that it's the 7-day rolling average is reducing.
Yeah, those are our 2 different statistics. So first on the active case, those are the cases in which we have individuals that are still within their quarantine period, if you will, that we're still monitoring. They could either be asymptomatic and be in quarantine, or they might be in symptomatic situation, which we are helping them along with their symptoms until they are healthy again. And as of today, you have 82 of those. As the numbers that came out today at 4 o'clock, there's 82 in Bonner County that we are actively monitoring. The other is the 7-day rolling average is the number of cases that we receive. So we get a lab report that tells us that the case is positive. And that is the number of cases that we encased in the graph I showed with this here. It is the 7-day rolling average of how many cases per 100,000 that we've received.
Thank you.
You bet. So I talked a little bit earlier about our positivity rate. So this is the rate at which folks are positive when having a test. And as you can see, that was running back in September, first or second week in September. That was running around 4% of cases that came in to be tested were positive. That has shot up dramatically to almost 14% as of today. So, and you can see the graph here that continues to rise. And that's that report. A few more granular data that you might be interested in. As of 4 o'clock today, we had 30 patients that were hospitalized, so it's dropped just slightly. Overall, we've had 73 deaths in the 5 northern counties associated with COVID-19. We have 1 unofficial that will probably turn to an official death, and that'll be 74. You might also be interested to know that in the 5 northern counties, since school was back in session, we have had 116 students that have been confirmed COVID positive. 66 of those we're still monitoring. We've had 76 staff associated with the school, and of those 41 we're still monitoring. So total cases, both groups, 192 and 107 that we're currently monitoring. We've had a total of 75 patients and staff associated with a long-term care facility. Also, we've had, as I mentioned earlier, you have 82 active cases in Bonner County, and we've had 2 deaths in Bonner County. You might be interested in the school district and Lake Pend Oreille School District. This is as of last Thursday. So we send this report to the state. There were 12 cases that total of 12 cases at Lake Pend Oreille School District as of the 15th of October, and that would be both students and staff. So very pleased actually with that number for the Lake Pend Oreille School District. And Mayor, that's pretty much my report, and I'll take any questions if you would like.
Great, thank you, I appreciate that. Any questions from council?
Yeah, I have one. Do you have one of those charts with the recovery rate, what the percentage is for those who have it and they recover just fine?
I don't, but I could sure get that information.
Might be a little positive.
Mm-hmm. You bet.
Any other questions from council? Okay. Is there anyone from the public that would like to comment on this issue? Anyone online, Melissa? No? Okay. Thank you for that report. Really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you.
All right, Jennifer?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. On to our second COVID-related topic, and that is our Economic Recovery and Response Program. We have Andrea Marcosio here from the Bonner County Economic Development Corporation to give council an update and outcome report on the spring grant round that was provided to businesses. Primarily, you'll recall during the time that businesses were experiencing significant shutdowns due to COVID-19 and our stages of reopening. The city of Sandpoint contributed $10,000 towards this program through the CARES Act funding. And as approved, council approved in the budget this year, we have an additional $50,000 in funding going into this fall and winter season. And Andrea is going to be announcing or has announced a fall grant program again. And so she'll be talking about that as well. And we're also going to be sending out a survey to our retail and food and beverage service businesses throughout the city on PPP and getting some understanding if there is a need in that regard, as we're able to purchase that and have channels where we can do purchasing at bulk and at cheaper costs through the CARES Act program. So we'll be looking at whether there's a need there for that going into the fall as well. So Andrea, I'll hand it off to you.
Great. Thank you, everyone. Mr. Mayor and the council members, thanks for having me. And I'll try to be brief, but leave time for questions at the end. Most of this is really positive news that the funds that the city were able to contribute to the Economic Response and Recovery Fund through the EDC have been distributed and have helped our businesses here locally in Sandpoint and beyond. So some positive news to piggyback on your comment. Okay, so if you weren't around at the last presentation, we responded pretty quickly to the initial shutdown and that kind of immediate fear of not being able to reopen and navigating those very, I think, scary moments for local businesses here. Everybody was affected in a different way. And so this was an opportunity to offer direct support to businesses in the community who are in crisis. So feel free to click through. We created the goal of providing expert level professional services to businesses in crisis who couldn't otherwise afford them. So we didn't hand businesses a direct grant, just to be really clear. We worked with a professional service provider, either that they had identified previous to their application and paid already, or needed to be connected with someone and get the services that they couldn't afford. So I just want to make sure that folks understand that there was both a professional service provider and then the business who received access to them. So go ahead and click through. The major contributors to this portion, which we're calling round 1, because I'll announce later that we're launching round 2 here, was the city of Sandpoint with their generous $10,000 contribution, Inovia with a similar amount, and then the county contributed $5,000. And then we administered it as the EDC, which is a 501c6 organization, and our board oversees those efforts. The city sits on the board of that organization, just for context. We created an economic response and recovery committee. The purpose of that was to make sure that we had a robust discussion around applicants and also to extend our outreach and bolster fundraising efforts. So Ryan Robinson sits on our board at the EDC and also chaired up this committee. Councilwoman Kate McAllister served in her capacity as executive director of the chamber here in Sandpoint. Amy Encinas is the president of Priest River. Just a reminder that EDC, the Bonner County EDC represents beyond just Sandpoint. And I'll address the difference between our funding and how we use those funds in a minute. Eric Paul, our chair, oversaw and represented our executive committee from a fiduciary responsibility, and then I staffed and worked on that committee. So applicants by the numbers. So in our first round, we received 31 applications, a good sign that there was a need for this process. 19 of those were approved and granted. So just to give you some context to why those numbers are so different, 3 withdrew their applications, whether they applied and misunderstood or didn't need it or had a circumstance change, like they received PPP funding. We had 1 who was approved and then said, you know what, we're going to survive. Let's give that money to somebody else. So some of that was just the business's decision. 9 were ineligible or non-responsive. So submitted their application and we found out they either weren't registered as a business or were a nonprofit and at that time weren't eligible for these funds. And then a few were non-responsive to our response to them to offer them the grant. And then we have 1 that applied late. We closed the first round just to make sure that we didn't exceed the funds that we had available. And there's 1 kind of pending for this next round. 71 of the applicants are businesses based in the city of Sandpoint. So that's not something that I was surprised to see, but it was good to see we had representation from non-Sandpoint businesses across the county. We did issue grants to folks outside of the Sandpoint area, but those were not funds that the city allocated. So applicants by industry, I didn't list individual business names here unless they gave us permission, but wanted to give you a snapshot of who applied for these funds. And this was actually a little surprising to me. I had the sense that we were going to see mainly Main Street retail. We saw a wide variety of businesses apply for these funds. So once again, another reminder that the impact of the pandemic on the business community here is wide reaching and not just, service industry or brick and mortar. So what types of grants did we fund? Just about 37% were e-commerce support, and I'm generalizing a term here. This was mainly brick and mortar businesses who didn't know how to communicate with their clients without having physical contact, which was something they couldn't do for many weeks. So we help them either translate to online shopping capabilities or modify their business models through their professional service provider. That's great because that investment for these businesses will last beyond COVID. Modifies the businesses and makes a good investment. 31%, just under 32% needed financial and CARES Act advising. So I just applied for the PPP. I don't know what that means. This is really confusing. I also got the EIDL. Does that disqualify me for other things? What does this do to my taxes? And then the last 2, which were around the same amount, were COVID compliance. A great example is rewriting your standard operating procedures to meet COVID compliance. Time consuming, we granted a business funds to do that. And then marketing and advertising, some just direct signage, things that people needed to pay for in order to reopen and be compliant with the state's guidelines and the health districts. Go ahead on to the next slide. So one thing that's really amazing is not only did we help the businesses, we then engaged professional service providers who were all based here in Bonner County to actually execute these. So we're helping 2 businesses at once. So not only were the businesses struggling, but then the service providers who weren't getting as many contracts are struggling as well. This is a 2-for deal. So these were either identified by businesses to work with. We just identified that they were here locally or not. And then I just included some business testimonials. I thought that would be positive, some downtown businesses. And other groups who were willing to say on the record that they received a grant and that this did great. So many of you know Outdoor Experience. They're downtown. They've been in business here for 30 years. First time they've ever been closed for a 5-week mandated closure. A brand new business owner in Jennifer Curto. So a pretty scary time. We were able to help them launch their online e-commerce and new website, and that went really well for them. So this presentation is available if you need it in a PDF. It'll be on our website, all of this stuff as well. And then the Sandpoint Farmers Market was a great example that I just wanted to bring up. As you guys all know, because you work in permitting with where they do their work, it was a challenging year to switch locations, get open, and then of course engage farmers who live outside of Sandpoint city boundaries, but are still part of the Bonner County District. So we were able to fund their entire marketing campaign for the market, which they were not going to be able to move forward with. So 100% of their marketing for the summer months was paid for through this fund. They were really happy with that. So just wanted to report directly out on what our funds were used for. $9,936.13 went directly to these business grants. And then the remaining was contributed to administrative fees. So exactly $10,000 of city funds. They have been expended. We thank you for them. And if Jennifer and the mayor attend our board meeting, so we're aware of this before tonight. And then if you click through the next, just some really great news. I released a press release today saying that tomorrow morning applications for round 2 funding will commence tomorrow. So the pending application we already have will be dumped into that pool, and then we'll accept new funds. The same committee will administer these and oversee this process. The good news is that we were able to leverage the success of the first round for a few new funding opportunities. So some additional private dollars. The Inovia Foundation gave us $11,000, both with an anonymous gift and then a Margaret Gilbright portion of their funds. And we were able to ask local businesses who are doing well during this time to contribute. So as you're not surprised, businesses in our community put money back into this fund to help some folks who aren't. So folks like Coachava, Ting, Washington Trust Bank, North Idaho Title, among others contributed. And so we have a good amount of funds remaining. And then in addition, there are still CARES Act dollars on the table via the city and the county that we're going to be working with to extend the partnership that was offered in the first round to try to do as much as we can. So the one big difference that I just wanted to note tonight is that our committee and board voted to increase the amount that each grant could be. We did a max of 1,000 in the first round because we had a limited amount. And we will be issuing up to $5,000 grants. So that may change the way in which businesses interact with this fund. It could be a significant boost for them. And we anticipate with the rise in cases that folks may be experiencing some challenges again. So check out all of those details on our ERR fund, and I'm happy to take questions.
Any questions from council?
I don't have any questions, but I wanted to extend a huge thank you to you and your board. This is one of the many reasons why I love our community. This was a very unprecedented time with COVID. However, our community has gone through things before, and other members and other people help each other out. This one was far and above. This is more than just a barn raising. You guys came together and really saved a bunch of small businesses, whether emotionally or financially. Just having somebody there to hold their hand while they went through some of this stuff, as well as help them understand that they weren't the only ones going through this. That's, you put a couple pebbles in a pond, those ripples are gonna be felt for a very long time. So thank you, and your board.
All right, thank you, Andrea. Really appreciate that. And we're excited to do round 2. Is there anyone in the public that would like to comment on the BCEDC ER program? Yeah, please come forward.
I wasn't prepared to comment on this. My name is Justin Dick. I own Trinity at City Beach and co-own Jalapenos. I'm glad Andrea's here to be able to discuss this, but you've seen some testimonials and you can hear it in person as well. When this was all first happening and we were running around chasing down our PPP loans and going from one bank to the next bank and finding banks in North Dakota and Florida and everywhere else when the banks got full up. It was wonderful to see our local organization, the EDC, come through. At the time, I didn't use any of the resources for Trinity at City Beach because we did get our PPP loan. It was a little more nebulous on the jalapeno side. And we ended up using some of their resources to help get some signage and some state guidance stuff put up in the restaurant, as well as the resources on where to get those things here locally through our local community and our local business ownership. And I do want to point out that Andrea even touched base with me a couple of times when she realized that Trinity hadn't put in an application. She personally called me up, let me know about the program personally, as well as whatever they could do to help. So a big kudos to her and the rest of the EDC for how they got their stuff together so quickly in such an unprecedented time. Thank you.
Great. Thank you for that, Mr. Dick. Appreciate it. Anyone else online, perhaps? No? Okay. All right. Thank you for that report. And the final item update, rather, under old business is the aquatic invasive weeds report. So our Parks and Recreation Director, Kim Woodruff, will introduce this item for us.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I'm happy to reintroduce Matt Lawrence, the owner of Aquatic Weed Solutions and a longtime local. Last time we met, we entered into a 3-year agreement with this company to manage our aquatic invasive weeds. So Matt will be reporting on the results of our first year and kind of what to expect maybe in our second year. So, Matt.
Thank you, Kim. This year was obviously a little different for us as well. We got a little bit later start than normal due to everything, but that didn't really change kind of our survey process or anything. You know, being local, we were able to get out and actually just, you know, go for a distancing walk at the beach and take a look at the weeds. So this year we did have some visibility issues early for seeing flowering rush. I believe here we surveyed 289 rush plants in our pre-treatment survey. We ended up finding an additional 521 plants once we were underwater. All of those were removed. If you guys remember from the first meeting, we want to focus primarily on flowering rush because that's our biggest threat to our recreation and to our ecosystem. It is coming from Flathead Lake in mass quantities. Ducks and geese love it. Float through the Clark Fork, and basically our entire system is just being, you know, invaded by it. Luckily, I want to say this is our 5th year actually doing it, first year in this contract. But we have been extremely successful in reducing the numbers, and we're to a manageable level to where we're able to remove all identified flowering rush plants every season. So at the end of every season, we don't have any more flowering rush plants within our treatment areas. Altogether, we removed almost 19,000 or over 19,000 pounds of plant mass, biomass. Almost 4,000 cubic feet. Obviously, I don't know if you guys take a walk out there. We usually dump our plant. It's about 98% water. Plants are the aquatic plants, so they shrink very quickly. So we do get some comments like, "Oh, is that all you pulled all season?" Well, we removed some of it, but also, you know, there's only 2% of what was actually removed left there. So I would recommend kind of the same thing moving forward. We do focus primarily on flowering rush, like I said. Our treatment areas are, as you can see, the flowering rush is all the red. We do have some Eurasian milfoil areas mixed in there, some curly pondweed mixed in there as well. But the flowering rush is the biggest threat. The Eurasian milfoil is kind of one of those deals we've really attacked hard at the state level in like 06, 07, 08. Kind of one of those battles where it's a management battle. We're never going to eradicate it because it is coming downstream. Same with all of this in the system. So our goal is to try and use the city money as effectively as possible to take care of our highest threat first, which is flowering rush, and then work on Eurasian milfoil and creolite. Eurasian milfoil is primarily a suppression effort to keep it out of boat props. Number one, for recreation impediment. Number two, for spreading it and making it worse. As they cut it up, every 4 inches of the plant can create a new plant. So We start with flowering rush. That is our primary focus. We move to curly leaf pondweed because that also grows very early in the season. And then by August rolls around, the Eurasian milfoil will start topping out near the surface. So that's kind of our attack method. It's been highly successful for us so far. We would like to expand our treatment areas to the boating lane right there between the train bridge and the boat launch. Right now, there's not currently enough funds to reach out into those areas just for time reasons. And then also the kayak access points like in Sand Creek. Those areas are getting some flowering rush in there fairly thick now. Those are areas we would like to target in the future just for recreational purposes. The total biomass removed, you can tell this year's a little bit more than last year. That is not an indication that there were more plants this year. We added, I believe, 28 hours of additional funding. So we had a little bit more time to remove the plants. The numbers have continued to decrease in terms of total plant biomass. One kind of little study we've been doing since we've been doing it, we have out there by the deepest boat slopes, we did kind of like a 20 by 30 grid where we've been removing the flowering rush, or sorry, the Eurasian milfoil at the roots to attempt to eradicate it. So far, it has been highly effective. It's very successful. The downside of that is curly pondweed just moves in. So it's kind of one of those things where I think the happy medium is just to essentially mow the lawn and keep it from getting worse rather than, you know, dump all kinds of additional funding in to try and actually eradicating it. Just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So any questions?
That's great. Any questions from council?
I do. I'm just curious as to what we do with that quantity of poundage for the biomass. I know you had said it's not as much as the tonnage that you had said.
Yeah, so it reduces quite a bit. We put it, so kind of depends. So with Sandpoint, we're able to be extremely flexible, which is good for both of us because I can fill jobs in between. And then other times we can, okay, the plants are not ready to be pulled quite yet. They're not quite topping out. So if that's the case, we haul it off and I take it to a landfill. If we're going to be working there for say a week or two, the plants are dumped by the water treatment building out there next to where the fireworks are lit off.
Is there any
hauled off to, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it was the Baldy Mountain piece last I heard, but I'm not sure.
Is there any benefit to doing anything else with that other than dumping it?
Farmers like it for fertilizer, but they have to keep their cows from eating it because it's so rich in nitrogen. Yep. But that's kind of as far as we've taken it because it does reduce to such, you know, small quantities. People have asked, you know, hey, can I take that home in my garden? You know, absolutely. I can't technically say that, but because it is illegal to transport invasive species. But if they're dead going to a garden, I said it there.
Yeah, that's just a curiosity with me and what the stipulations on that might be. It might be more trouble than it's worth, or maybe something we can look at. Thanks.
Maybe Amanda, you want to add that to your surplus auction list? Sorry, that's an inside joke, but
Selling weed, that's great.
any other questions from council? Oh, yep, Councilwoman Rule.
Or a concern.
You go for it.
I had a complaint this summer about from the boat owner who is over in the area where the city shop is. And he seemed to think that once your operation came through, that there was all sorts of pieces of floating debris that were never collected. And I'm just looking for, I don't know, a clearer understanding of exactly how you're harvesting and if there's any legitimacy to that complaint or
Yeah, absolutely. So the harvest process is actually a diver underwater and a diver on the boat. The diver underwater has a 5-inch suction collection apparatus, basically to hand remove the plant at the root. They suck it up through a tube to the guy on the boat that then collects it and puts it in totes. There is possibility the plants can be chopped up if they're young and fragile. It really depends on the plant mass. Over there, we deal with a lot of pond weeds. Number one, that should never be happening to where plants are being left. And if that does happen, I would love to know about it right away because it's super easy to fix. But if that did happen, it's something we can definitely address and remove. That wouldn't have been flowering rash irrigation milfoil for the most part. It most likely would be the sago pond weed chunk because it's so thick and dense over there. That it is very difficult to swim in to get to the invasive plants because technically we're only removing invasive plants with this money to where we're not targeting native plants. So that is potential to where the fins while they're diving or, you know, the weight belt or anything like that can get caught in native vegetation, get pulled out. But either way, they should never be leaving the job with vegetation floating. So there is potential for it to be Eladia, especially, is a pond weed that it sticks to the bottom, and then if it's disturbed, it can float over time. So the guys could have left, not seen it, and a couple hours later, it can float up. I'm not saying that's what happened, but I would love pictures, and we would address it immediately if I did see that.
Okay, thank you. In the future, if I get that, I'll have them provide some more clarification so that you know how to address it if it is a problem. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, thank you for that presentation. Really appreciate it. Is there anyone in the public that would like to comment on this matter? No? Okay. Moving on. The first item under new business is ratification of an agreement with the Idaho Department of Commerce for an award of $277,750 under the COVID-19 CARES Act funded Idaho Broadband Grant. These funds will allow for the installation of fiber conduit on the south side of Bridge Street and the east side of First Avenue, including Wi-Fi to Community Hall with free public access. Does council have any questions? Is there anyone in the public that would like to comment on this matter? All right, seeing none, I would entertain a motion to approve the resolution for the agreement with the Idaho Department of Commerce for the Idaho Broadband Grant.
So moved.
It's been moved.
Second.
And seconded. Is there any discussion? This will be a roll call vote.
Councilwoman Rule,
Yes.
Councilwoman Sherman,
Yes.
Councilman Spuro,
Yes.
Councilman Grote,
Yes.
Councilman Darling.
Yes.
Motion passes. The next item under new business is a resolution pursuant to Idaho Code Section 50-1402, declaring the value of real property for a proposed exchange at City Beach and scheduling a public hearing. City Administrator Jennifer Stapleton and Parks and Recreation Director Kim Woodruff will provide a presentation for us.
Perfect.
Mr. Mayor and City Council. This item for consideration tonight, as the mayor indicated, is not a decision on a swap or a land exchange itself. What is before you is to consider establishing the values for the properties and then to set a public hearing for November 18th to consider a property exchange or land swap. We have a brief presentation for you on really the business side of this tonight, and we'll have a full presentation for City Council and the public as a part of that public hearing. There will also obviously be an opportunity at the public hearing for the public to speak in favor of this, in opposition of this, or if they are neutral. And we will also be including in that presentation our other partners who would be part of this proposed land swap. So As City Council and Mayor will recall, we have adopted a concept for City Beach as a part of our Parks and Recreation Master Plan that contemplates the relocation of the boat launch and an associated parking area dedicated to that boat launch from where it lies currently near the it's not a roundabout, but really a circle turnaround in City Beach, down to the southern end located adjacent to the railroad tracks. That property currently is owned by the Cox family, and it functions as a RV park currently. It also contemplates an exchange in order to make that happen of city-owned property, which is displayed and depicted on this concept in front of the hotel. On the north side of the hotel, it's the grassy area on the north side of the hotel, which includes where the deck is for Trinity, as well as currently the swimming pool for the Best Western Hotel.
And just for clarity, it's the east side of the hotel, but it's the top side of the picture.
Here's a better depiction, so you can see the two properties that we're currently discussing. The property that is identified purple with the lined hashtags through it is the property that is currently owned by the city, again, adjacent to the hotel. And the property that is identified in purple, no hashtags, where the RV park is and extending out into the Sand Creek, into the waterfront, is the property that is currently owned by the Cox family and again, serves as an RV park. As an aside on this, the Cox family and the city of Sandpoint have had a very long-term lease. We've been in this lease for decades that has allowed us to have boat moorage there on that waterfront. Down there on Sand Creek, we actually don't own that property. It's the Cox family that owns that property. And as part of that lease agreement, there's some of this exchange occurring back and forth in the lease agreement. It allowed for the pool as well as the deck where Trinity Restaurant is, and the grassy area actually going up to the pathway there adjacent to Trinity and their deck to be used for private purposes, private special events. So we have had a long-standing lease which has allowed that. The Cox family envisions construction of a new hotel at the property. And this is their preliminary site plan. It hasn't even gone through at this point the full vetting of a pre-application process. So this shouldn't be taken as necessarily a fully final design, but it is the preliminary site plan as presented by the Cox family that will be going to city planning and building for review. The family anticipates taking down the hotel shortly after Labor Day of next year and constructing a new hotel in the place that would be approximately 100 rooms. So currently the hotel is about 50 rooms. So it would double the occupancy of the hotel. It also significantly increases the square foot of Trinity, the restaurant, including outdoor seating area and allowing for event space and a convention center at the site. What is contemplated on here is the hotel moving out onto the grassy area, about as far as where the pool extends right now, in order to gain the footprint needed for the hotel and provide the parking that's needed for the additional hotel rooms. Typical hotel franchise agreements require one parking spot per hotel room. So with the addition of 50 rooms, they also need additional parking spots. There had also been a lot of conversation between city staff and the private parties related to this, that with a build out, what we would not want to see occur is additional parking demand get pushed out onto the public parking area at City Beach. Certainly, we don't have controls in place necessarily if there's overflow, and we all deal with the challenges of the hotel sometimes ends up with our marina parking. We get pushed over from the hotel and restaurant, and it kind of works its way around. But there needed to be adequate parking to meet the needs of the hotel, and the public recreation parking couldn't be considered a component of that for the hotel. We did have an appraisal conducted, and this would be the basis of your declaration of value. Back in March, Ed Morse of Morse and Company conducted an appraisal of what is labeled as Parcel 1. That is a city-owned property adjacent to the hotel. And that was appraised at a value of $2,066,000. And Parcel 2 is the RV park that is owned by the Cox family, and that was appraised at $2,090,000. And so that is a fee simple exchange. There's been some question in the public debating this coming up as to whether these properties are leased properties from the railroad, as is very common, or whether they are owned by the parties. They're fee simple owned. These parties are fee simple owned by the city and by the Cox family. So it actually was Great Northern Railway that dedicated the parkland to the city back in 1922 for the sum of $1 for a park front there at City Beach. So, and the Cox family was able to acquire their parcels directly from the railroad as well. Important timelines with this. Boat launch, one of the questions would be, how would we come up with the funding for the boat launch? There are significant state and federal grant rounds for recreational boating. The city has been very successful historically in pursuing funding for our boat launches. Recently, we received a grant for our launch improvements that will be occurring over the winter and into the spring down at War Memorial Field. But we also have been very successful in getting grant money both for our boardwalk along Sand Creek, as well as our marina at Windbag. So we have a very successful history of large amounts of dollars. The grant round is already coming up for waterways. Application period is January of this year. We anticipate, again, another round, or January of 2021. We anticipate another round in January of 2022. We are already in conversations with Waterways Commission, with the county who also applies for these grants, as well as with the funding agencies about this possibility coming down the pipeline. Both Kim and Linda made a presentation this week, and we anticipate for the boat launch itself lining up for a significant grant application in January of 2022, as opposed of 2021. And there's some timing with all of the other partners, and we too are still trying to secure funding for a phase 3 down at War Memorial Field. So we're working our way through that first, and you have to take your turns relative to these grant rounds. The hotel tear down, as I mentioned, hotel and the restaurant is anticipated to occur on or about September 7th of 2021, so right after Labor Day, with a rebuild beginning immediately thereafter and an intended reopening date in the spring of 2023. Overview of some of the steps that we've been working through with this process, and we will be prepared to provide a full presentation on this at the public hearing, but we can answer any preliminary questions that council may have tonight. We have had a phase 1 environmental assessment conducted for the RV park to ensure that the city wouldn't be looking at a trade for what could be contaminated property, especially with its location next to the railroad. There were no environmental concerns identified, so that preliminary work has been completed. There has been much discussion about development restrictions placed on the property owned by the city by the Burlington Northern Railroad. So as I mentioned, we were granted the property at City Beach, which includes the property adjacent to the hotel. And we do have a deed restriction on that property that it is to be used for park purposes. We have been in communication over several months. In fact, I was down on site with the government relations liaison through BNSF on Monday, discussing this swap and the release of our deed restriction. They are putting together a letter, which we will have before we would post this for a public hearing, indicating in writing their commitment to release the restriction on the property adjacent to the hotel. And instead, what we have discussed is the placement of the park restriction then on the property that is currently the RV park, but that the city would acquire through this exchange. It is a win-win for BNSF as a partner in this, in that they have a concern about development occurring near the railroad tracks. They want to ensure that that doesn't happen. So actually that location for a deed restriction is preferable to the railroad as well. So we will have that in writing. We anticipate in advance of the public hearing. There has been much discussion about the construction of the boat launch. And we have heard as we were going through the Parks and Recreation Plan, a desire from the Sailing Association to see a launch that could be constructed so that it was deep enough to launch their sailboats that they typically are using there at Windbag. We have engaged in discussions and services with actually marine engineers, and we will be presenting a revised design specifically for the boat launch and marina area, kind of down in that parking launch area, as well as for boat moorage adjacent to that, based on some recommendations from the marine engineers. But they have confirmed in discussions with us, and we will also have this in writing, that it can be designed to accommodate a sailboat as been requested. There have been concerns about turning radius, and would this be an issue relative to entry and exit into Sand Creek under the bridge? And there's been concerns relative to the construction of the second rail bridge. That too has been fully vetted with the marine engineers, and we're prepared to discuss that fully at the hearing as well. That is not a concern with the marine engineers. Finally, there has been discussion about public access on the grassy area to the hotel and restaurant. The Cox family has committed to city staff that they are planning, and as was depicted in their site plan, that would remain a grassy area. Their intention is that it continue to remain a grassy area the way that it is now, open to the public, open to private. They may have events on there, but the intended use for the grassy area isn't any different other than an extension of the hotel further out onto the grassy area to accommodate the larger footprint. And finally, there have also been some concerns raised relative to the overall design and ingress and egress to a relocated boat launch there and parking area next to the railroad tracks. We have also had that fully reviewed by our traffic engineers, and they have suggested some small modifications, but still modifications that make this viable at that location. And we will be discussing ingress, egress improvements in conjunction with the site plan discussions with the Cox family as well for their property. And with that, again, this is before council tonight to consider only establishing the values and scheduling the public hearing for November 18th. This is not a decision tonight on a property exchange itself. Kim, did I miss anything?
Extremely well done.
Okay, does council have any questions? All right, seeing none. And please note that public comment on this matter will not be heard this evening, but rather will be reserved for the public hearing on November 18th. Thank you for that presentation. Appreciate it.
Mr. Mayor,
Yeah.
I note in your notes that there is no motion, suggested motion provided here. So if I may, I'd like to recite one.
Please. Thank you.
Your consideration. It would be a motion to approve the resolution declaring the value of real property for a proposed exchange at City Beach and scheduling a public hearing for November 18th, 2020, pursuant to Idaho Code Section 50-1402. If you would like to consider that motion, Mr. Mayor.
Yes. Would anyone like to make that motion?
Yes.
All right. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? This will be a roll call vote.
Councilman Darling,
Yes.
Councilman Grote,
Yes.
Councilman Spurrow,
Yes.
Councilwoman Sherman, Councilwoman Rule.
Yes.
All right, motion passes. Thank you, clerk. The last item on the agenda this evening is renewal of city employee medical, dental, vision, and life insurance policies, as well as other city employee benefits. City Administrator Jennifer Stapleton will provide a presentation for us.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I know this is my most popular presentation every year. So we're going to be pretty short with this this year. Let's get us to slideshow. Okay. So tonight for consideration by the council are the 2021 employee benefit renewal. As council will recall, we did about an 18-month renewal with our last round with an effort to get the timing of our employee benefit renewals to line up with when our deductible renews. So this is our first calendar year renewal for employee benefits. So what's before you tonight is employee benefits that would renew with new contracts going into place January 1st of 2021 and extending through December 31st of 2021. A reminder on our goals for our benefit programs. Our established goals are to provide our employees options to best meet their individual needs. We have worked diligently over the last several years to expand our offerings to our employees to allow them to be able to make choices about what type of insurance plan best fits their needs and the needs of their families. So we have had over the last several years, 3 medical insurance programs available for our employees, and those 3 programs continue forward in this medical renewal. We have also had a goal of containing costs, both current and into the future, considering costs to both the city as well as our employees. And this became another one of our deciding factors to offer a variety of benefit programs that would allow us, for example, with the introduction of our HSA and a higher deductible plan, to have that help us with containing upfront costs that typically drive increases in our premiums as we're doing renewals from year to year. Thirdly, our goal was to have a benefit program that was sustainable. We went through a period of years, my first couple of years in being here, where we were at significantly high double-digit increases with our benefit programs. And we were put into a position initially, we had one plan that was offered, And in order to get a plan that was affordable to our employees, affordable to the city, we ended up having to cut benefits from that plan. Then we subsequently came back and offered a buy-up plan to bring those benefits back to the employees. And then we also brought the HSA plan again to help us with containing costs and to provide our employees with another offer. We have designed our programs to be competitive for retention and recruitment of employees. One of the changes that we made about 4 years ago was we changed our city premium share for our employees to where the city covers 100% of the premium for our employees. For employee coverage themselves on both medical as well as dental, there isn't a cost share on those programs. Our cost share only extends to spouses and to dependents. And finally, as I mentioned earlier, we were looking to get ourselves to a point where we could do a calendar year renewal to time with deductibles. So let's start first with our medical benefits. Our medical benefits are currently with Regents, and we propose that our renewal be with Regents as well. We saw an interesting trend happen this year, but a trend that we've been working on again with the change up of benefits and as our employee census has changed over time. In a year where we are seeing the concerns with COVID, we had high flu rates last spring. We actually are seeing significantly lower utilization of our medical benefit plans than what we have seen in prior years. So we're at about 45% utilization to premiums paid. And as a result of that, it has allowed us to retain the 3 plans that we currently offer, add some new benefits to those plans with, and this is pretty much unheard of, I have to say, in my negotiations with insurance plans for an employer. This year, our plans have a 10% premium reduction. So we have been talking for years about premium increases, and it's very rare at an employer you're ever talking about a premium reduction, but because of our utilization rates, we were able to negotiate this year a 10% premium reduction to be shared between city premium payer as well as our employees who pay a portion of the premium share for spouses and dependents. In addition to that, we were able to add a new 50-50 refund endorsement to our plans. So we used to have in our plan, and we had to give this up about 3 years ago in order to negotiate to a renewable rate that worked for us. We had a refund endorsement where if our claims paid were less than our premiums paid, the difference would come back to the city. We had to give that up 3 years ago again as part of our negotiation. And we are not able to get that same type of refund endorsement back. But we were able to negotiate a new refund endorsement that would allow for a true up of our benefits. So if we had a year like we've experienced over 2019 into 2020, where we are seeing our payout is less than premiums paid for our insurance program, the difference for that would be split 50-50 between the insurance provider and then 50% of the cost savings going back to the city. And our proposal would be that go back to the city to go into a medical stabilization fund, that in years when we're seeing premium increases, we have a fund that can offset those premium increases, again, both to the city as well as to our employees. So we have seen years in the past where we've had premium increases, both for the city as well as through our employees through their cost share, that those premium increases have exceeded any step increases, any COLAs. So we've worked hard over the last 4 or 5 years to really ensure that we are outpacing with COLAs and premium increases, or step increases, excuse me, any premium increases in our insurance. And certainly this year, that's not even something we had to worry about with a reduction. So this renewal, again, keeps our three plans, includes an approximately 10% premium reduction, and provides a new 50/50 refund endorsement. So the way that that works for 2021 is we would go through the plan year 2021, so through December 31st of 2021, we would get a report, a true up in the spring of 2022, letting us know what premiums were paid, what costs were paid out, and any difference would be refunded to the city in July of 2022.
And so prior to that time, we would have a separate resolution whereby we would establish a stabilization fund.
Correct. Correct.
Does council have any questions? Thank you, Jennifer. That's excellent.
I got a couple other things.
Oh, sorry.
Still have a little bit more. Sorry.
Okay.
So again, just renewal on our three different plans. We do have our traditional plan. We would maintain our HSA plan as well as our buy-up option. The only change that we have really across the front on these plans on this grid is an increase in the deductible for our HSA plan. And our deductibles for HSA, they're established by the federal government. So it's not something you can negotiate with your insurance provider. They're established by the federal government every single year. So the deductible, the individual deductible on the HSA plan went up by $100 for 2021. And you will see we have offset that down below under the additional city contribution. Under the design of our plans, currently the city contributes $1,200 to the HSA accounts of employees to offset again that increased deductible. We increased that for 2021 by $50 to split that increased deductible between the employee and the city. We have several new medical benefits that we have also added to the plan and are negotiated with the premium reduction. Hearing aids, hearing aid evaluation for members under the age of 26 is a new medical benefit that is added to the plan. An increase in nutritional counseling offerings. Currently, our plan allows for 3 visits for nutritional counseling in a lifetime. Under the new benefit, it's 3 visits per year as opposed to a lifetime maximum. We have a couple of really significant pharmacy benefits, particularly for any employees or dependents who may be diabetic. Our new medical benefits add coverage for continuous glucose monitors. So currently those are not covered under our insurance plan. And it also puts a cost share cap on preferred brand name insulin, limiting it to $100 per 30-day supply at retail or $300 for a 90-day supply through mail with the deductible waived. And this is still a very significant cost, but for any employees and benefits who are on preferred brand name insulin, this is a significant benefit to them. Our medical rates, just to give you a quick snapshot. So our medical rates as negotiated are those that are in the black. I included the red. Those are just so you could have kind of a quick look through. Those are what our medical rates are currently under our current program. So you can kind of get a quick snapshot look of what our reductions are across the board. On our dental program is through Delta Dental. Unfortunately, on this side, we actually had a premium increase in this program for 2021. But that premium increase in dental is far less significant because of what the premiums are on the dental side as compared to the medical side. We actually saw utilization of our dental go up fairly substantially. We had added a new benefit in our last round, couple new benefits. One, we added orthodontic coverage for our employees and and dependents. And we did actually see a fair number of people take advantage of that additional benefit, but then that runs up utilization. So there's the plus with adding benefits and then kind of the cost. So we try to be really careful in how we balance those. In addition, we had added another benefit that allowed for our employees and their dependents who regularly do their preventative routine care, where they could roll over their max amount to be paid out from year to year. So instead of paying out 50% of a crown, if you haven't had a crown for 2 years, but you've been to the dentist over a 2-year period, and so you hadn't used that limit that you have from 1 year, you could roll that over into the next year to help offset some cost. So that was another benefit that we had added the last round, which could also increase utilization cost on the dental side. The dental program for 2021, we have added an additional benefit to the medical or to the dental program, which is a new sub-program called Health Through Oral Wellness, or HOW. Essentially, this program allows for additional benefits to our employees at no cost. It would be, again, covered by the insurance based on a risk assessment. So if a dentist conducts a risk assessment and determines, for example, a dependent needed additional cleanings every 6 months is not sufficient, they need them every 3 months, or a child needs fluoride, or an adult needs fluoride, or perhaps additional sealants are needed to prevent cavities. If that is determined through a risk assessment, then our insurance will pick up the costs for these services, which it doesn't currently do. So that's a new benefit that we're adding. So with the premium increase, there are also some additional benefits that would be provided in 2021. When we go across our medical and our dental, so we look at our medical with the premium reduction, we look at our dental with the premium increase, we see that our average cost combined for medical and dental under our current program is $9,764 per employee. In 2021, it would go down to $8,914. So that's our average across our employees. Total savings with this renewal between the city and the employees, if everybody stays on the plan that they're on right now, our total savings as a result of our premium decreases would be $88,000. Again, it's shared with the city as well as with the employees. We pick up the bulk of the premium because we cover 100% of the costs for medical and dental for our employees at the traditional plan level. And we also pick up a portion for spouses and dependents as well. So the city has more savings because we pay substantially more of the premiums. But through this renewal, the savings to the city would be $79,000 next year over what we are paying in this current year. And our employee out-of-pocket savings for their premium share would be approximately $9,000. Our life insurance, long-term disability, and COBRA renewals, we have no premium changes, no benefit changes. So we really don't have any changes on any of our other programs. We continue to offer optional vision insurance. Again, this is an opt-in voluntary program. The premium is 100% employee paid. There are no premium changes, no benefit changes on this program in these renewals either. And that is my summary of benefits. We are hoping to, if council approves this tonight, open enrollment next month. And again, when we did our analysis, Sarah went through literally all of our employees. This is what we typically do when we're looking at premium increase, and take a look at any premium changes. What does that mean for our employees on their checks? Across the board for all of our employees, if they're covering If they're covering any dependents on both medical and dental, even with the 20% increase on dental, the reduction in the medical, it results in a savings for all employees out of pocket if they stayed on the programs that they're on right now. And again, it's a reduction for the city.
Thank you, Jennifer. Appreciate that. Any questions from council? All right. Is there anyone in the public that would like to comment on this issue? All right. Seeing none, I would entertain a motion that renewal of city employee medical, dental, vision, and life insurance policies, as well as other city employee benefits, is hereby approved. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? This will be a roll call vote.
Councilman Sparrow,
Yes.
Councilman Darling,
Yes.
Councilwoman Rule,
Seems like
she was having some computer issues earlier, so. Councilman Grote,
Yes.
Councilwoman Sherman,
Yes.
Okay, and
There's
Councilwoman Ruled, what's your vote on the motion?
Are you asking for my vote?
Yes, everybody voted except for you, and then you came back. Do you want to vote?
Yes.
Okay, motion approved, and this meeting is adjourned at 7:03. Thank you, everyone, for coming.